We're going to talk a little bit more about allyship and inclusion in the entrepreneurship ecosystem. There's no magic wand that creates an inclusive tech ecosystem. As Melinda stated earlier, a lot of tech companies, a lot of communities have been trying to look at what is one check-the-box solution they can do to fix all of this. Whether it's unconscious bias training, whether it's apprenticeship programs, you name it. But there's no magic wand, there's no simple solution to this. But we have some strategies that we believe that work that you should implement.
As we have said, and as Janae said as well, it begins with all of us. Allyship is about understanding the imbalance in opportunity out there, understanding the imbalance in opportunity in our entrepreneurship ecosystems, and working to change it. Allyship is really seeing and understanding the person who's next to us and the person who's missing who should be next to us, and first understanding what they're going through, and then helping them succeed and thrive with us. When we work together to create diverse and inclusive tech ecosystems, data shows that we will be more productive, more innovative, and more profitable as an economy. So that begins by leading with empathy. Inclusion, as we said, starts from within. So when we look at empathy, there are 4 parts to it. So on the insight side, see their world, understand their feelings, and then appreciate those, appreciate them, all of them, without judgment. And lastly, one of the things that we often forget is to communicate understanding. It takes all of that to really show empathy for someone else. Insight and engagement. For the last 30 years, diversity and inclusion has really focused on finding commonalities, which is really important, the we, that part. What we need to do now is also look at those differences and value those. What is unique about me? What is unique about you? And how do we work together to solve problems in a more innovative way? It's not about being colorblind. It's about valuing those unique experiences that each of us brings. So what can you do as an ally? Using those tools, those empathy tools, what can you do as an ally? Start by doing no harm. We all harm people without intending to, and it's our job as allies to understand and listen, really listen and learn, to unlearn some of the things that we do and do them and relearn in a way that is more inclusive, to make some mistakes and to apologize and to keep learning, keep growing outside of our comfort zones to learn more. So give me your full attention and don't interrupt. The little things you can do that do no harm. Don't interrupt people. Often underrepresented people are more likely to be interrupted. So check yourself. Echo and attribute. So often underrepresented people's ideas will be, somebody will say, hey, here's my idea. It will be dismissed. And then somebody else will take up that idea and they will be championed for the idea. It happens a lot for underrepresented people. So echo those ideas and attribute them back to the original person who had the idea. Learn the language. So learn how to pronounce my name. Learn how I describe my disability, for example. Learn how I describe my identity, my religious identity, my ethnic identity, my geographic identity. And then listen and learn. Again, listen, go outside of your comfort zone, go to events created for diverse people, follow underrepresented people on social media. That I have learned a ton that way. Learn how your words and actions affect people, and then filter them so they do no harm.
Now we're talking a little bit about what underrepresented entrepreneurs are going through.
Microaggressions. These are everyday slights, insults, negative verbal and nonverbal communication, whether intentional or not, that impede your ability to do your work well. It could be simply people talking over you or cutting you off. It could be, Wayne and I were talking about some examples here. It could also be, in the entrepreneurship ecosystem, tone down your blackness.
Yeah.
You hear that a lot.
Yeah, I had a colleague who was raising venture capital, and he would go meet with an investor, and the investor said, I like you, I want to put money into you. I get the business, but I need you to tone down your blackness.
And then the third example is a woman, I am the CEO of my company, often will walk into a room and somebody will look right past me and look to somebody else on my team, a man on my team, to make the decision. So that's another microaggression that can really affect how I show up and how I thrive in my job as a founder. It has a real impact on our colleagues and our companies and our ecosystems and our collective capacity to innovate. Another is imposter syndrome. How many of you all have experienced imposter syndrome?
See some hands.
I see some hands,
Yeah.
There's, studies show that the majority of us, in one point or another, do experience imposter syndrome. So really briefly, on your left, somebody who is experiencing imposter syndrome believes, what I think I know is this, and what everybody else knows is this. But in actuality, it's over here. What I know is this, and what other people know is this as well. Imposter syndrome is one that if people consistently tell you over and over again your whole life that you aren't good enough, you start to believe it. So for underrepresented people, it shows up more often because of the barriers that they run into throughout society. So keep this in mind, that many of your entrepreneurs might be going through this.
And many of us may go through imposter syndrome as well. Tokenism. Tokenism is another systematic problem that underrepresented entrepreneurs face. It's a gesture of that, that it could be one underrepresented individual and that equals diversity. That's just not the case. Tokenism also is the aspect of, it's not inclusion, it's just representation only. And tokenism also entitles that if you have one individual from underrepresented group, they speak for the entire audience or community of the underrepresented group, and that's not fair, it's not right. And it can also make the individual feel undervalued, and they carry a heavy burden. And if an individual experience tokenism, whether as an entrepreneur or as an employee, how can you expect them to truly thrive and be productive? We all know what funding is a challenge for underrepresented entrepreneurs. It doesn't matter if you started from the bottom or started from the top. If you're an underrepresented entrepreneur, you will face challenges to receive funding. Often for underrepresented entrepreneurs, there's lack of friends and family, lack of networks, especially if you don't go to Ivy League school or you come from a rural background, a rural community, and you face barriers of pattern matching in the venture capital community. And stereotype threat is another aspect of underrepresented entrepreneurs. As we were working on this slide, it was like, I didn't want to post an image of a black man with a hoodie on who can be perceived as a threat, because that triggers too much of a stereotype in too many people's minds. I want to show this image because the stereotype threat often creates this for me as a feeling of stress, like whether if I'm getting an elevator and someone's like grabs your purse, or if I'm walking down the street, people move on the side of the hallway, or I'm going in the store, get stalked almost by the local police officer. But in terms of entrepreneurship, stereotype threat is that, okay, you're a black entrepreneur, you can build a product just for a black community. Well, why can't you build a product for the rest of the world and be just as good as everyone else? But stereotype threat is a risk and a fear that unfortunately, that we face in our society today. Thank you. And years of lacking true inclusion. The struggle can wear you over time. We all know about the data, as Melinda said earlier, around the lack of venture capital goes to black women. And then also we're seeing a big movement now of black women. We're hopefully seeing a big movement of black women raise venture capital. But with years of lack of true inclusion, this has not often been the visual we've seen of what tech should look like or what tech is look like, the intersectionality of people from different backgrounds working in tech, and all of the above.
Yeah, so many underrepresented entrepreneurs face all of the above, right? And that means that they may have a longer runway, and you need to plan for that. It may mean that they have a different education than what we pattern match generally in the tech industry anyway. We're looking for specific patterns, and often those are specific educational institutions. And so the different education means that you may need to teach them. It also means that your education for founders needs to be different. right? Some of the things we saw before, lack of networks, that means that you need to build systems so that they can grow those networks. It could mean that you need to teach them. We heard about investment funds don't go to most underrepresented people. So that might mean your education for entrepreneurs is that they don't go for investment. It may mean that you need to teach them how to build and grow revenue instead, and to grow their company in a more organic way. You also need to develop more different support mechanisms and different mentorship programs. And those mentorship programs should be from successful people that have had the same experiences. That can make a big difference in an underrepresented entrepreneur's life and how they thrive. Okay, so one of the things that we said at the beginning was that there's no magic wand that corrects for this. All of us individuals, our whole inclusive economy starts with individuals and is composed of individuals. And each individual goes through a series of stages in order to create a final behavior change. So this is just a behavior change model. There are many out there. This is one of the most simple ones where it takes 5 steps, and that takes time to really create a change in behavior. And so our cultures go through the same thing. It takes several steps to fundamentally shift a culture. All this is to say that you need to design a process for creating behavior change, for creating culture change, and know that that process takes time.
And on this slide, I would like to note that where we are in this room today, we are on the action stage. We're on the stage where we have decided to take action to create inclusive tech ecosystems in our local communities. So we have to maintain so we don't go backwards.
Our motto at Change Catalyst has been from the very beginning to focus on solutions. And I implore you all today, from here on, to focus on solutions. So with that, we're going to give the stage to other people creating real solutions in their local entrepreneurship ecosystems. Thank you.